Okay, let's continue chapter 6.1 lecture. This is a short section, one example of standard deviations. This is part 3. So in this section, we want to compute the standard deviation of a discrete random variable. We just finished calculating the mean or expected value in the previous examples that we had up here. Now, of course, it would make sense if we're computing mean that we would want to compute expected values, and so or standard deviations. And so the formula for standard deviation is complex. Here's the standard deviation. Again, we're not using the letter S. These are not samples. We're talking about population information. And so the formula looks kind of scary. It's the sum of x minus the value of x minus the mean or the expected value. All that squared, and then times p of x, all of that summed together. So that doesn't look too friendly. There's an alternative that looks like this. Summation of x squared times p of x. Well, in the previous example, some of that minus the average of that squared. Now, when we compare the formulas, this one's actually pretty simple. The mean one to calculate by hand for small data, right? X times p of x, add them all up. Here again, x minus the mean, it's kind of like a z-score. We're trying to find the deviation, squared times p of x. And so you may be able to recognize some values in there. But in the end, for standard deviation, we are going to use StatCrunch to do so. Here are the instructions that I had stated earlier to find the mean. So you can find them right here, stat calculators custom. And so let's practice this real quick. Computing the standard deviation. Here's some table. It doesn't have any meaning right now. And so what has to happen is that table, we would put that information into a table like this. We then would, after the information's into a table, which you're entering now, stat calculators custom, we go ahead and do what we had been doing. Stat calculators custom, the example 5, the probabilities, example 5 there, and just compute. And so in this case, the mean would be 2.39, and the standard deviation is 0.7056 or 0.706. And so using StatCrunch here, using StatCrunch, right, we get a standard deviation of, let's go double check again. We get a standard deviation of 0.706. And so that's how we calculate standard deviation for random variables, discrete random variables. Keep in mind, if you have any homework problems that ask you to do the variance, we don't use variance that often, but remember the variance is just the square of standard deviation. And so that's the way you would calculate that. If you ask for variance, just square that number. That's it for chapter 6.1.